Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast powered by eBay Motors Group. It is Saturday the 19th of February and you're joined by myself, Philip Nothard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. This is episode 9, season 8 of Motor Trade Radio, bringing you all the chatter that matters. And once again, we've gathered together this week's big car retailing stories across the franchised and independent sectors for you to enjoy all in one place, on demand, on your podcast feed.
So we've got a couple of shout outs this week, and the first one, we need to give a big shout out to Julian Stockton, who's a follower of the show and a good friend of ours, who's for pointing out in the direction of the headline that we might have missed recently, that we're going to cover one of the stories later on in the show, and direct listeners to Wolf Street. We'll get that right, Curtis.
Yeah,
well
done, well done. I'm so glad we rehearsed that.
Which is an online blog, which also takes a look at how some of the listed used vehicle disruptors are struggling in the US at the minute, and we'll also take a look at that later in terms of what the UK one looks like in comparison.
Yeah, and many thanks, Julian. Julian got in touch with us on LinkedIn, but if you'd like to get in touch with us, then you can do it on social media. We're both on LinkedIn and Twitter, or you can send us an email at motortraderadio@yahoo.com. So if you've got any news for us, if there's any stories you'd like us to cover, or if you've got any press releases, please share with us.
Definitely. And we have got Steve Whitton coming back up on the show today from Men Able, sharing his love, and that's all I'll say. But we'll let you wait for that one part way through the show at the midway break.
Yeah, he's a poet and he doesn't know it.
Yes, definitely. So what have we got in the headlines this week then, Curtis? Have we got a theme going?
There's no theme this week. Last week we were themed around used cars, although you wouldn't be surprised to learn that we'll be talking about used cars again this week. But this week's headlines come from Car Dealer, AM, Financial Times and The Sun. So headlines include Arnold Clark loses Toyota franchise in Scotland, Angus McKinnon reaches out to staff from closed Holt Cars in Derby, car dealers are offering £10,000 to buy back used cars, why the tortoise might be beating the hare in used car retailing. We've got an update on the Barbara Cox Woman of the Year award. The shortlist has been announced. We'll go through that. And we'll close off the show today with two industry bosses and friends of the podcast who are on the move.
Yeah, definitely. So, as you say there, Curtis, first headline of the week is in Car Dealer, and this is, as you say, dealership group Arnold Clark loses Toyota franchise in Western Scotland to Virtue Motors. And we know that Virtue took on Toyota, I think, down south, didn't they, by a couple of brands that we covered recently, actually, on the podcast.
Yeah, as recently as December, and I think they're both in the Midlands. But I think I'm right in saying this will be the first Virtue Toyota sites in Scotland. It'll be under the Macklin Motors branding, which is the Scottish arm of the group. But it's an interesting development, this, because Arnold Clark, as we know, UK's largest family-run dealer group, and in fact, pretty sure the largest in Europe. So it has 6 Toyota dealerships in West Scotland, covering Aberdeen, Ayr, East Kilbride, Bishopsbrigg, Linwood and Stirling. And as the story reveals, the franchise for Toyota will revert to Virtue. We don't know why, though.
No, and it is reverting to Virtue, but under the Macklin Motors name that obviously Virtue have got up there in Scotland. Opening the first will be in Darnley in South Glasgow on the 1st of April. So, yeah, like you say, it doesn't say why. We know there's been recently quite a few moves within the Toyota brand in the UK. Obviously, with the most recent, with Virtue taking on those sites, as you mentioned there, down in the Midlands. And I know there's been a few other shuffles about in terms of Toyota in the last sort of 12, 18 months as well. So whether it's part of that or whether it's to do with the onset of agency modelling that everybody keeps talking about? We don't really know. But they do also cite in the story that this is, it comes on the back of rumours, that Arnold Clark's has been handed a 2-year notice from Ford as well. And I must state, that is a rumour that car dealer is stating there in their story, so we're not sure what is going on there.
Yeah, and the statement from Virtue Motors said it will develop 4 dealerships to cover what it describes as this extensive territory. So that does rather suggest that the deal may not cover the actual physical sites. And as you say, the first one will actually open in Darnley, and Macklin Motors are already represented in Darley, which is South Glasgow, and because they represent Ford and Nissan there. But the first Toyota site is opening fairly soon, because we're talking about 1st of April there.
Yeah, so like I say, I mean, there's a comment there from Paul Marshall, who's the general manager of network development for Toyota GB, and said that they're delighted to be expanding their operations with Virtue Motors PLC through the Macklin Motors operation in this key geographic region, and looking forward to developing, as you say there, several exciting facilities for their customers. So again, I'm sure at some point it'll come out of what's happening and why. And maybe, if Robert is listening this morning, as he usually does over the weekend, that he'll come back on. It may be worth just to catch up generally with everything that's been going on in Robert's world of recent. He's been a busy boy lately.
He has indeed. So staying with car dealer, and the next story is, the headline is, staff who lost jobs after Holt Car's dealership collapse offered new roles by local used car dealers. So this is used car dealer Angus McKinnon, based in Uttoxeter. They want to track down staff who lost their jobs when Holt Cars went into administration and offer them new roles. So this is a friend of the podcast, Julian Stockton, who's sales director at Angus McKinnon. He actually got in touch with car dealer to spread the word that he's interested in talking to the affected staff, because since the business closed, they're obviously difficult to track down. But there could be a positive update on this. So the news about Holt Cars broke last week. So that's the Derby-based dealership. So it's closed its doors after 20 years, and it was a franchise dealer selling Mitsubishis when they were still a franchise in the UK, as well as SsangYongs.
Yeah, and Julian does put his contact number and email address there in the story. So if you are listening, and I suspect there's probably other jobs going as well, not just for those, but if you do want to get in touch with Julian, then it's Julian at Angus McKinnon, that's MACKINNON.co.uk, or his landline is 01889 563 448. That's 01889 563 448. I bet you think I'll get a different job now, don't you, reading that out like that, Curtis?
That's right, yeah.
But no, I think it's a great for Julian, one, to be giving us a shout out in terms of giving us to get in touch, that we'll give this a shout out, and two, for what he's doing. So if you are listening, then there are jobs available for you with Julian there, so do get in touch.
So heading over to the Sun, and the headline there is car dealers offering drivers up to £10,000 to buy back second-hand motors amid surge in demand. Now, we seem to be offering a weekly update on this particular story, don't we?
Yeah.
This is used car appreciation, and in fact we looked at the top 25 appreciating vehicles only last week, didn't we?
We did, yeah. We are due an update from Darren Martin at Cap HPI in the next week or so, but I suspect that we might be seeing a slight turn on some of those values from what I'm hearing at the minute, but slight softening there. But yeah, you're right. I think that this is that the values of vehicles have gone up. They have done some investigations into this, and I think, is it through AA Cars?
It is, yes.
That they've got in touch, and they're saying that one Land Rover owner in Surrey told the Sun on Sunday he was offered £10,000 on top of the original purchase price to sell the vehicle he had just bought a few months earlier. So I think it's the quoting the driver there saying it was unbelievable. The market is on its head at the minute. So yeah, very interesting story this one. Isn't it?
Is.
It does back up the conversations we've been having.
And you know what? As a customer, that's a call that you would welcome, isn't it? Because okay, they've bought a Land Rover, but they're being offered £10,000 more for to sell it back to the original dealership, which is all well and good if you don't actually need the car. So let's hope that particular owner has a good second car.
I mean, that's the key, isn't it? I think, in all seriousness, we talk about house price increases. We talk about, obviously, the price of used car increases we've seen over the last sort of 12, 18 months. But reality is, unless you're in a position that you don't need the car, or you've already secured a car at a cheaper price elsewhere, etc., then, if all used vehicle prices are up, then it's all relative to what you're being offered for your car because you need to replace it. But, I think there are probably pockets where, someone like this customer may have a Land Rover that might be worth £10,000 more. He doesn't need a car, or he's got alternative transport, or he's looking at a car that is not as highly valued as what the Land Rover was. So he'll be pocketing a few quid there maybe, but it just kind of says how strong the market is at the minute and how stock is in high demand.
Would you like to know what the three most sought after cars are?
We would.
Okay, I'll tell you. So number 3 is the Ford Fiesta. So average price as recently as 2019 was £7,448. According to this survey, it's gone up 31% to £9,770. In second place is the VW Polo, so that was £8,208 in 2019, now £11,037, so that was up 34%. And number 1, the Ford Focus, so £8,919 in 2019, now £12,764, so that's up 43%.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? I mean, that sort of demonstrates where the market has been heading. But I think it's very clear that there's been some definite winners, aren't there? And like you say, Curtis, we talked about it on last week's show, didn't we? With some of those more obscure vehicles that have gone up in price as well.
Yeah, no sign of our Vauxhall Zafira, sadly.
No, it's a shame that, isn't it? We need to speak to Darren about that and find out what's happening.
We do, yes. Meanwhile, you're listening to All the Chatter That Matters on Motor Trade Radio, powered by eBay Motors Group. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all the biggest car retailing headlines from across the media, available on demand wherever you are on your podcast feed. And now, here's friend of the podcast, Steve Whitten, with his latest Men Able Moments. And he's discovered he's a bit of a poet.
Yeah, hi Phil, hi Curtis, and here's another Men Able Moments. Thanks for having me back. It's been Valentine's Day this week, and you're probably now all thinking, oh, here he goes again. It's that slushy bloke that wears his heart on his sleeve and tells us all that we've got to love each other and share the love, which I think I've done in the last couple of Men Able Moments. Well, you'll be right, because I'm back. And this time, as I said, it has been Valentine's Day this week. And that, of course, is the day we're all encouraged to share the love and specifically make sure that the person or people that are most special to us know that they are loved. And you either do that in secret or openly to them, depending on where you're at, of course. But I've got a question for you, and that is, how much do you love yourself? Now, many people might say, well, it's Steve Whitten, bound to love himself because he's all over LinkedIn and social media and does all this sort of stuff. And actually, that's been the crux of my issues, because I didn't. And for a lifetime, I questioned myself and my self-worth, my confidence. And to a large extent, it was all bravado and it was all an act. And it's only really been the last few months that I've properly started to come to terms with the fact that the issue for me for many years was that I didn't love myself. So one of the things that I've started to do to help me is that I've started writing poetry. And I want to share one with you now, because not only are these poems aimed at particular situations or maybe a particular person that's done something that to warrant me being inspired in this way. But also when I read them back, many of them are actually sort of words of self-healing. So what I want to do is to share this one with you in this Valentine's week, and hope that it resonates and starts you to think about how loved you are, but how much you love yourself, because you genuinely are loved. And that's the title of the poem. It's called You Are Loved. So I hope you're sitting comfortably, and here we go. As you travel along life's rocky path, know that you are loved. It'll make you sad and happy, cry and laugh, but know that you are loved. As the rocky path divides, hope has been your choice, and know that you are loved. Your inspiration gives others a voice, so know that you are loved. Through your purpose and every word, know that you are loved. Your service ensures that voice is heard, so know that you are loved. Living in the now and going with the flow, know that you are loved. And as your light guides the way to go, know that you are loved. For all the lives you touch past and now, know that you are loved. And as challenges arise and you don't know how, know that you are loved. Through all those you know, it's clear to see, so know that you are loved. And I know I speak for them, as they'd all say what you mean to me. So from everyone whose light you see, know that you are loved. Hope you enjoyed that. Maybe one day there'll be a little book of poems, you never know. And I just want to dedicate that to the few people that have reached out personally to me over the last couple of weeks, where we've had conversations that's been fairly evident that the crux of their issues is they need to work on loving themselves, appreciating who they are, what they do, what they're about, and so on. So I hope the little poem resonates. And until next time, I will bid you adieu and remind you that you are loved. Take care. See you soon.
Yeah.
Nice one, Steve.
I wasn't sure whether we're getting a John Keats there or Pam Ayres before we went into that one, if I'm honest with you.
I loved his description of himself as that slushy bloke who wears his heart on his sleeve.
And his woolly hat. But we won't go there. Yes. But I say I was apprehensive there what we were going to get, whether we get a Robert Burns or whoever. But no, it was, Thank you again there, Steve. I think plenty for food for thought there for the listeners today.
Definitely, and good to see him putting across a serious message with a bit of humour. If you would like to get in touch with Steve, you can email him at stephen.witten@menable.org. That's stephen.witten@menable.org.
So moving on to the next story now, we're heading over to the Financial Times, and as Curtis mentioned at the start of the show there, this is all about the used vehicle market, and the headline is "Used Cars, the Tortoise can beat the hare for investors." Now, this is all about the kind of disruptors entering the sector. Now, with this, as we said, there's been a couple of stories recently on this, and Julian Stockton again shared the story with us from Wolf Street, which is a US blog, where they were looking at shares of online used car dealers, and that's from Vroom, VROOM, and Carvana, it's a bad one for me to pronounce there, Curtis, collapsed as market turned its back on money-losing disruptors. And that was looking at the share price drop in the New York Stock Exchange of some of those operators over there, with Vroom dropping very heavily in terms of share value. Again, with Carvana there dropping heavily in used car in stock value as well. So, but the story that we're looking at is UK based, and this is where they've looked at some of the they've looked at Pendragon, looked at Motorpoint and Kazoo, haven't they, on this one?
Yeah, it is interesting. And if you have got a bit of time over the weekend, I do urge you to look at the FT story and the Wolf Street story as well, because they really are good companion pieces, because they tackle the same subject but from different sides of the Atlantic. So the FT piece is very much a sort of analytical think piece written by Kate Burgess, and looking at kazoo specifically, and its performance since its flotation, and the obvious comparison there is kazoo being the hare, and Motor Points, tried and tested, bricks and mortar, and clicks now operation, being the tortoise, and getting to the same place slowly, but as Kate Burgess says, possibly more safely as well.
Yeah, and like I say, there's a comment in there that they refer to people like Mark Lavery, again friend of the show, that saying that the market is changing, but slowly. Price comparison sites such as Auto Trader have brought transparency. The pandemic has forced shoppers to face their fears of the web. Mark Lavery, boss of franchise dealer group Cambria Automobiles, says a decade ago buyers made 4 showroom visits before buying. Now they research online and visit just the once. And that's kind of trying to do this comparison between that physical and virtual e-commerce environment and what's happening there. But yeah, some interesting comments in here, isn't there?
There is, yeah, and it does go into some detail about the different valuations of the businesses. So it does point to Kazoo, the listing in New York on the stock exchange was worth $8 billion, and then Kate Burgess in her story actually takes a close look at Motorpoint, who we consider a big operation. They're the biggest car supermarket business in the UK, but their forecast, for example, for the next financial year ending March next year is £25 million pre-tax profits, going up to £40 million the year after. So in relative size, we're talking about two businesses that are going after exactly the same market. So it will be fascinating to see how this pans out, and how the disruptor, what the disruptor brings to the party. Really.
Yeah, and obviously there's always there's a lot of conversations taking place around the disruptors as they're being classed as, and I suppose one question is are they ending up at the same place, just coming into it from different directions? The physical operations that are now going into the online space, and then the online operators that are now entering the physical space, and do they just meet at the same place is essentially one view at the market. But again, like Curtis has said there, it's worth having a look at both stories, because what you've got to look at in terms of, especially when you're looking at the shares, is Kazoo is on the New York Stock Exchange. It has got a different kind of investment portfolio than some of the UK operators as well. So it's worth having a look at both of them there as to where those comparisons lay and why the shares are doing what they're doing as well. But interestingly, I mean, the story does highlight there, and you and I have been in the industry long enough now, Curtis, that if you remember the days of the Pendragon shares and the challenges they've faced over the years, I mean, they're doing really well now, aren't they? I mean, they've really benefited from the changes of the pandemic and what that's forced them to do, and Bill Berman taking the mantle there, and they are performing, in terms of that share price increase. So there's a lot going on at the minute. So as Curtis has said, two fantastic stories there. Worth a read of both, and if you do want to find them, then just drop us a note if you can't find them, and we'll gladly send you the links anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And we're finishing off this week with 3 people-related stories. So the first one from AM Online, the headline is, Barbara Cox Woman of the Year Award 2022 shortlist revealed. So do you want to tell us who's on the shortlist, Phil?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fantastic lineup, and it's great to get some different names that some of the listeners might not have heard of before. But yeah, there's Caroline Burnell, who is Head of Marketing and Communications at E-Star Truck and Van. We have, is it Kyra Raisin?
Kyra, yeah.
And she's a Commercial Director at V12 Vehicle Finance. Claire Perkins, who's the Group Academy Manager at Stoneacre Motor Group. And then you've got Emma Loveday, who's UK Commercial Manager and Fleet Risk Consultant at AA Drive Tech. And then finally you've got Nicola Hobson, who's General Manager Fleet Operations at Truss Ford. And then you've got Nicola Gilder, who is Group Strategy and Operations Director at Peoples Ford. So a great mix of nominees there, isn't there, in terms of representation of businesses as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the winner will be announced fairly shortly, actually, on Tuesday, the 8th of March at the next Women with Drive event, which is organised by Cox Automotive. And that's to celebrate International Women's Day. So as well as the prestigious award, the winner will receive £5,000 to spend on her own personal development. So we wish all the finalists the very best of luck with that.
Yeah, and if you do want to register, you still can register. It's free to attend between the hours of 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. And if you go over to AM Online that have covered the story, just in the final paragraph there is a link to register. So by all means, do register. It's always a great event, and there's some great discussion and debate takes place on those Women in Drive events anyway. And that's hosted by Liam from Cox Automotive. So please do head over to that.
And the final two stories, as I say, really updates on people, latest moves, and also two friends of the podcast. So the first story is staying with AM. It's ex-Mitsubishi UK MD Rob Lindley joins Ennis & Co as associate. So this is Rob Lindley, who listeners will know most recently as the UK boss of Mitsubishi Motors. Before that, he led Harley Davidson in the UK. And before that, when I first knew him, which is quite a long time ago actually now, he was UK boss of Mazda. So he will be working with Ennis & Co, who are international automotive headhunters. They do a lot of work behind the scenes, putting top people into the top jobs. So that is such a good fit for Rob Lindley.
Yeah, and as you say there, I mean, what a career Rob has had, and a good friend of the show. And he's due back on for a catch up and to see what he's been up to in between all this and what his plans are, I suppose, in his new role there. But yeah, great opportunity there for Rob, and a great recruitment for Ernest & Co as well, isn't it, with Rob there, because he does bring a wealth of knowledge there to that business, doesn't he, in terms of his career. As you say there, Middle East and Africa at Harley Davidson, through to his time with Ford and with Mazda, and as you say there, with both McLaren and Mitsubishi as well. I mean, what a wealth of experience Rob does bring to that role.
That is such an impressive CV.
It is, isn't it? When you say it like that, it's kind of one of them, isn't it? When you go from Harley Davidson through to McLaren and Mitsubishi, I mean, what a fantastic career he's enjoyed over his life so far. So,
so we wish Rob. Yeah, we wish Rob well at Ennis & Co, and the studio door is open for you, Rob, if you want to come on and have a chat.
Definitely. And again, remaining with AM in the final story of today, and again, as you say, Curtis, a friend of the show, and we've interviewed him a couple of times, I think, with Stuart Folds there. And the headline is that Stuart Folds retires from the role as Truss Ford chairman and CEO, which I think took a few people by surprise. But he's decided that he's going to take retirement.
Yes. So, Stuart, as you say, friend of the podcast, ex-Pendragon. He joined Truss Ford in the top job in 2017. During his tenure, he oversaw the rollout of Truss Ford Now, which was that initiative to improve the immediacy of sales and after sales. He rolled out Parts Plus, the trades part centres, and Quick Lane, the fast fit operation across the UK. But also, and I had the pleasure of working with Stuart Folds during their dealer conference a couple of years ago. So I spent a couple of days with him, the team, and a lot of the dealers. And one of the things he did oversee during his tenure was the Breakout for Ben challenge, which was this incredible challenge that took place every year, which was raising funds for Ben. And it's often involved travelling across the country in unusual vehicles, fancy dress, and they raised some amazing sums for Ben, and Stuart was very much behind that. So we do wish Stuart well, happy retirement, and again, do come on the show to just tell us how you're getting on.
Yeah, and we'll await the news of him appearing somewhere else, because it's not the case after a period of time.
Well, yes, exactly.
As he joins something as a non-exec or something in the future. But yeah, again, good luck with everything, Stuart, and thanks for being such a friend of the podcast as well. And what a fantastic legacy to leave behind in your career as well. So well done with that. And that's it for this week, isn't it, Curtis? I mean, we've gone around quite a bit. Brought you a little bit of poetism this morning from our good old friend Steve there. Lots happening in the used vehicle market, lots of debate around the used vehicle values, and I'm sure we'll question Darren from Cap HPI on that when he's due to give his monthly update. And definitely have a look at those two stories around the share values, both for the UK and what's happening over on the New York Stock Exchange around some of these disruptors, because they have very insightful stories there. But don't miss them. Just please do head over to what we've mentioned. If not, give us a shout, and we'll send you the links. And give us a shout if you want to come on the podcast, or you want us to share a story, as Julian has done.
But that's all for this week. You've been listening to the weekly Motor Trade Radio podcast powered by eBay Motors Group. Many thanks for joining us for all the chatter that matters. We're back again next week. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.